back in the USSR. Do, 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 do. Yes, my dear friends, I think that Russia is back in the USSR version 2. And here is my 4 reasons why I think so. Hello, my dear friends, I'm Ksenia. Welcome to my channel St.Petersburg-me. And today I'm speaking about my observations about the USSR in Russia in 2022. Let's go. If you know anything about the USSR, you know that basically USSR is famous for its shortages of basic necessities and basic food. So, and especially that was typical for the late USSR. But you know, if we compare the USSR to the present day Russia, like now, it's not the case. So basically we have plenty of everything in our stores now. But you know, still I think that I am back in the USSR and let me explain why. So the first thing is the enormous level of repressions. I think also you know that many people now are being oppressed by the government, by the police, by OMON, and many people now receive real prison sentences, and they go to prison for 5-7 years and even more. And you know, that is the parallel with the USSR, because if you are interested in the history of the USSR, you know that repressions, especially during the Stalin time, it was like the main thing in the USSR. And I think you know that many people in the USSR got in prison for not being satisfied with what was going on at those times, and many people even got killed in the USSR officially. Like it was not because somebody killed them in prison on their own will, but it was like the policy of the government to kill people, расстрел. What do you call it? Расстрел? I don't know. So they were sentenced to расстрел. Here is my number 1 thing that I see in Russia, and I can tell you that of course repressions in Russia began not now. You know, it began many years before the 24th of February. I think it quite began in 2012 or maybe 2013. Maybe you even heard that many people got detained just because they were on a single person protest holding an empty piece of paper, or other slogans like no to war or something like that. I think you read about it in your media, and that is the number 1. The second thing that gives me the thought that I live in the reincarnation of the USSR is snitching. Yes, my dear friends, lately we've been receiving a lot of news about people snitching on each other for pigeon here, for not being loyal to the existing system. For example, I can tell you that last, I think, week, a teacher from Penza was sentenced to 5 years suspended imprisonment. It's when you not really get to prison, but you are deprived of some of your rights. So you serve your sentence at home, but you don't have right to go abroad or go even out of your area. in different cases it's different thing. So and I know that this teacher lost the right to teach. Basically, she in this way she was just deprived of her work and her ability to work as a teacher. So now I don't know what she will be doing. And you know, in one of my previous videos I told you about a municipal deputy that was sentenced to 7 years in prison, if I'm not mistaken. So he was also snitched, so his fellow deputies just snitched on him. And you know, that was a very wide practice in the times of the USSR. You know, there are stories when people just, for example, wanted to have an extra room in Kommunalka. That's why they snitched on their neighbors for not being loyal to the USSR government, and those people went to prison. And people who snitched on their neighbors, they had the chance to take their another room in a shared apartment. And the same was for positions on factories. For example, if people didn't like their colleague, or they wanted to take their position on their work, so they also sometimes snitched on those colleagues and had the chance to take their position. And you know, there is even a saying, I don't know, like so a famous Soviet writer, Dovlatov, he once said that yes, Stalin was a tyrant, but who wrote 4 million squil donos, right? If I'm not mistaken, it's called squil, or just a report. So you go to the police and write a report on a person that he is against the existing system or something like that. And there were also cases when a mother, if I'm not mistaken, in Moscow wrote a report to police for her son for not going to army. Like you know that we in Russia, we have to serve in army for 1 year, men, not women, men. And some men don't want to do that. That's why they do everything possible to avoid that. So she just wrote a report to the police for her son for not going to army. And you know, I even got scared of those news, because now I'm really afraid of scrolling my media, social media, you know, news feed in public transport, for example. I really don't do that anymore, because if I just read a post that is devoted to the situation, I'm afraid that somebody will call the police on me or something like that. And you know, maybe I'm paranoid, but in my apartment, when I watch a YouTube video with the analysis of the whole situation right now, I turn the sound down, you know, because you know, I hear everything that is happening, for example, up at my neighbor's apartment. So I think that he can also hear what I'm listening to, and maybe if he's pro-government and he's okay with all that is happening now, I'm afraid that he might go to the police and file a report on me for watching, you know, analytical programs or other programs on YouTube. So maybe I'm overreacting on that, but you know, I really make the sound of the videos that I watch on YouTube down. The third thing is the law about foreign agents, and let me explain what it is. So in Russia we have such a status that is I don't know, like is granted to you by the government and by the court if you do something against the existing political system, or but this law is used for people to silence people who have the voice, and people and organizations. So there are three types of such status. It's the first is foreign agent. The second is unwanted organization. I don't know how to translate it. I just will write it. And the third type is an extremist organization, and the mildest of them is the first type, foreign agent. So basically, if you granted the status of foreign agent, that means that you are restricted from money and from like teaching and other things. So basically you can have that status if you get money from a foreign organization like YouTube, for example. And if you are speaking something that is considered not very good by our government, you can have this status, and this status can be given to people, like a person, a media, and an organization. If you get this status, the main thing that is not very good to you is that you have to send the report on every ruble that you spend to the Ministry of Law or something like that. So it's just not very comfortable, because you really have to do a report on every penny or on every kopeck that you spend. The next thing is unwanted organization. It's a tougher thing, because if people send money to such an organization, they can have problems, really problems, with the law in Russia, and that's why this status is already not so mild, and this status is granted to organizations who defend human rights in Russia, and many organizations already got such a status. And if you get such a status, if your organization gets such a status, you have to close all your offices, your website gets blocked, and your money account gets blocked too. So if you continue receiving money from people, those people will have problems with law in Russia. And the next status is an extremist organization, and I can only have one example. It's Navalny's organization, which is called the Foundation Against Corruption in Russia. So this foundation was marked as an extremist organization, and people got problems just ordinary people who just donated that organization, that foundation, they got real problems with law in Russia, even if they sent money to this foundation before it was marked as an extremist organization. So some people really got fines, and even some of them had problems, like criminal problems. They got criminal cases. If you continue donating money to such an organization, first time you get a fine, second time you get a fine, and third time you get a criminal case. And you know, in the Soviet Union, there was also a like non-official status for people which was called, they were called the enemies of the nation, the enemies of the country. And basically those were people who were against the regime of the USSR regime, or even innocent people got that status. Again, if some other people envied them, and those people could snitch on just innocent people, and that's how people got the non-official status, the enemy of the nation, and they got into prison or into labor prison, or even got расстрел sentence. Расстрел. So this is the third thing that gives me the thought that I'm living in the USSR. Welcome. The fourth thing is a special store for the privileged. And you know, in the USSR there was a store called Березка. We were talking about it with my mom in this video, this. That was a store for the diplomats in the USSR, and for the people who got higher positions in the USSR government. And what could you buy in such a store? You could buy some food that was shortages in just ordinary stores for ordinary people, and you could buy watches, you could buy clothes, boots, shoes. So the privileged stuff that you couldn't get in ordinary stores, because you know that there were shortages of everything, and at any time of the year in the USSR, like always. And people were lining up for not just several hours. People could line up for, I don't know, like for buckwheat, right from the morning and up to it just was sold out. And you know, I think that is back because like I don't know who, a government or some people announced that they will open such a store in Russia in 2022 in late August for diplomats and for people from the the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. So basically, if you want to buy something at that store, you will have to show your documents specifying that you are a worker of a foreign affairs ministry. So my dear friends, those were my reasons proving to me that I'm living in the USSR version 2 in 2022. And you know, my dear friends, I can tell you that it's not now that I'm noticing that Russia is going to the USSR mode. At first, I noticed that we are heading back to the USSR maybe 2 years ago. It was like a very strong feeling that we are on that path. I started noticing little things that were telling me that the Russian leaders have chosen that path. So, my dear friends, thank you for being with me. Thank you for watching. Thank you for all your shares and likes and comments. And comment in the section down below, what do you think of Russia returning to the USSR? See you in the next video. Bye.